selecting and purchasing the phone and walking back out of the store with the phone. So with all of that investigative information, Upper Allen Township Police obtained an arrest warrant for Mr. Reinhart, and as we said, made attempts yesterday to draw him out in order to speak with him and execute the warrant. He resisted those attempts, and that's what triggered the use of the special response team and the quick response team to serve the warrant in Carroll Township. Obviously, as you know, during the course of that standoff, Reinhart took his own life. The investigation continued thereafter, of course, and police discovered certain other additional evidence that leads the experienced officers involved in this case, and certainly myself, to the conclusion that this was more than just a burglary setup. It appears that at least there's evidence to show that there were more potential violent acts being planned by Reinhart. Certainly they can't be carried out now since he's taken his own life. As you can tell from my recitation of the facts, and when you have a chance to review the documents in this case, you will see this is a very thorough investigation. That's not unusual, certainly in law enforcement, most particularly in Upper Allen Township where we are here today. The very capable and experienced investigative staff and ran down every lead they could possibly run down to make sure that they had sufficient evidence and that they understood the situation as well as they could. I won't stand up here and tell you that every case turns out this way with cell phone records, fingerprints, and certain and the information about the tracking the car and the searches. But a lot of police work is knowing where to look, and certainly the detectives in this case knew where to look in order to get the information they needed. I think that's all in terms of addressing the underlying facts. Chief Martin is here today, and as I said, he's been supportive of this investigation. It's obviously a difficult time for him. I don't believe the chief is going to take any questions, but Chief Adams and I will certainly be happy to entertain any questions you might have. Go ahead, Liz.
Was Officer Reinhart on active duty throughout this investigation? Had he been placed on suspension or desk duty or anything?
No, he was actively working. We were not keeping Susquehanna Township apprised of each and every thing that came up in this case. We wanted to make sure that we had sufficient evidence to file a criminal charge and then certainly let them know at that point.
Why such a long time frame in between when like the initial investigation began, then when you identified him as a suspect? It was almost a month until yesterday.
Yeah, that's the hard work of criminal investigations. I mean, that's drafting and executing search warrants, that's waiting for cell phone records, waiting for computer records. In our world, in a case like this, that's really not a significant length of time, based on the investigative work that was done.
Were you worried at any point that it could have escalated before you kind of contained him?
Obviously, that's always a concern. Now, other than that note that was written that we found in the trash that was discarded and was never communicated to Brown, we were in fairly, I don't want to say constant, but had a good level of communication with Ms. Hall, and there wasn't anything to indicate any particular violence. I mean, this was a setup of a burglary, and obviously it appeared that what was going on was you know, the estranged husband was trying to set up the new boyfriend in order to get the estranged wife back. As it turns out, what we saw yesterday led us to believe that there was potential violence planned. That didn't really come up in the course of this investigation based on what we found until yesterday.
And when you say certain violence, I mean against whom and what kind of violence?
Well, we're still trying to work through that, Liz. In this situation, you know, potentially, obviously, Reinhart did harm to himself, but the two potential victims would be Ms. Hall and Mr. Brown.
Can you indicate when in the investigation you it was clear, was there a certain piece of evidence, I know there was a lot, but was there a certain point when it was clear that something wasn't right about, I mean, just, I know you did a lot, but I didn't know if there was maybe something that you realized you had to turn the focus.
Well, I'm going to have the chief answer that question. I'll tell you from my perspective, a lot of investigative work is having a hunch or having a theory and then following up on it. And pretty clearly from the outset here, I think there was heightened suspicion based on the calls that were made, and then based on Reinhart showing up here. But as we know, especially in situations that involve matters of the heart, so to speak, people don't always act reasonably. So rather than drawing any final assumptions from that, I think the police officers did the hard work they needed to do. And I can tell you, again, I want the chief to address this, but as this case progressed, we were in pretty active communication about it, about what we were trying to get to and what we might be waiting for until we were ready to go. Some of the things that came up, I have to say, were a bit surprising, but I can tell you from my perspective, we really wanted those cell records because that would really show us what the cell records did in this case was corroborate the other information that we had received. So it corroborated where we thought Reinhart was at the time, and it certainly corroborated where we thought Brown was at the time. Because if you think through this could be Reinhart setting Brown up. It could be the situation that I think Reinhart tried to make us believe, which was Brown didn't do this, but he had somebody else do it. Obviously Brown had an alibi, but he had somebody else do it. So by finally getting those cell records and showing, at least through the phones, where everybody was at a certain time, that to me was the ultimate trigger that said, all right, we're ready to go. Chief?
Brown and Reinhart never had a face